Hello folks, in this video we're going to be taking a drawing and turning it into a 3D model in Blender. Since the drawing is most like a cylinder, what I did was add a circle mesh to the center and begin extruding it while using the rotate and scaling tools to fill out the needed shape. This drawing is of an space alien ship, which is meant for a video game, which originally was just going to be a 2D sprite. However, using a 3D model, even if you're looking to make 2D style artwork, can be helpful as it gives you huge flexibility, especially when it comes to animating and texturing. Once I had the main body finished, I moved toward the crystal teeth and spikes. As I wasn't sure what the most effective method would be in making them, I tried out two different techniques. For the first tooth, I added a mesh plane perpendicular to the drawing and begun extruding and merging vertices to get a sharp point. I subdivided the mesh for increased flexibility, though ultimately I didn't need the extra faces for such a simple shape. In the second tooth, I used a hexagon, or a circle with 6 vertices, and played the same game of extruding and merging vertices to get the tooth look. While the two teeth came out alright, I didn't feel it was a particularly efficient or fun way to do things. The third tooth is where I figured out a method I liked. Instead of orienting a simple mesh perpendicular to the drawing and extruding, like I did for the body and first two teeth, I instead placed a simple mesh flat on the drawing and started building out the visible faces and placed the vertices on the XY plane where needed. Once I had the 2D mesh mapped out, I raised the appropriate vertices to get the tooth shape into 3D space and mirrored the whole mesh across the Y-axis. While this means that the mesh is identical on both sides, my aimed art style would not be harmed by that. I then went back and used the decimate modifier to simplify the meshes on the prior two teeth. In 3D modeling, and art in general, I'd like to emphasize 2 points here. Number 1, don't be afraid to experiment. I went into the model without having a clear idea of how to make it, so I just tried a couple different techniques and picked the one I liked. 2, only do model work as complex as your intended style needs. This model doesn't really need a unique mesh across the vertical, so mirroring saves me time and effort. In fact, if I were to remake the entire thing, I'd probably mirror it and do only half. After I got the teeth done, I moved to the back spines. As the spines aren't unique, I just made one mesh and then I copied them to the other locations, and scaled and rotated as appropriate. The last step I did is not something you see in the original drawing. I decided to make the body of the space alien rough and bumpy. In modeling, there's 2 common ways to do this. Number 1, use a normal map, aka bump map, which tells the surface how to react to light, giving the illusion of depth and shadow. Or, Number 2, you use a displacement map, or vertex displacement map, which either physically moves the vertices to give definition in the geometry, or generates new vertices to accomplish the same thing. As I wanted the geometry to distort the body shape visually when viewed from an off angle, as well as to give depth, light, and shadow when viewed from any other angle, I just went with a simple displacement map using a random Voronoi texture. In more complex models, it's common to use both types of mapping at the same time. And here's the finalized result in pixel art form. In a future video, I'll go over how I did the materials and shaders.